We have risen from the ashes to school the masses. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Scholars Wrestling Show, episode 346. I'm your man behind the microphone, Scholar Jeff. Elsewhere, joining us on the screen is the one, the only, the undisputed scholar himself, Scholar Tarek. Scholar Tarek, how are you doing this evening, sir?
I am doing very well, thank you. I am really excited because we didn't have a show last week, so we have to just point out that the finals are set. The two men who have been dominating Scholars of Wrestling, of course, end up in the finals of the Scholars of Wrestling Championship Tournament. And couldn't be more excited to face my Scholars tag team partner, Scholar Brian. You didn't need to do an intro for him. I could do the intro myself. My Scholars tag team partner and my opponent for Money in the Bank Finals Scholars Wrestling Tournament, Scholar Brian. Hello, Scholar Brian.
It was like fate. Okay. It's like we knew what was gonna happen when the brackets were made.
Of course. Oh man, hey Jeff, you could get your redemption. You have to beat Charlie for the Scholar in the Bank beef case. Because it's something.
Oh, believe me, I know.
As long as it's like anyone but you, Charlie.
Oh, believe me, I've got my work cut out for me as it is. But then again,
it would have to be. You have to put your heart aside and think with your head for this one.
I will think about whatever. I will think about this using whatever body part I need to. But elsewhere,
I think Charlie's going to win the beef case.
Shut your mouth.
Damn it, Jeff! If you could, hey, one time, go with your head, not your heart. Okay, we don't need any weird predictions out of you. Okay, I need you to win the beef case one time. That's it.
This is exactly why Jeremy is going to win.
Hey, I'll elsewhere, take it. It's not Charlie.
But in all seriousness, we've got a show to do. This is the Scholars of Wrestling, so let's kick things off the right way with a little segment we like to call Backstage News.
Indeed, we shall go ahead and peek behind that curtain and check in on a little
Backstage News.
Final backstage looking at Daly's place.
Man,
they're moving out. They're going back on the road, man.
That video package that they did was amazing. So there's no meh there.
That's it. That it was very good. But elsewhere, we do have a little bit of sad news to talk about before we go any further. We had a couple of passings in the world of professional wrestling recently. Specifically, we're talking about the passing of Melissa Coates, aka Super Genie, the valet / girlfriend of Sabu for many years. And we also, just more recently than that, we ended up losing one Mr. Del Wilkes, who wrestled for many, many years in the WWF and on the independent circuit as the Patriot.
He was a big part of, wasn't he a big part of like the Hart Foundation? Like there was a Canada versus USA kind of deal. And he was part of the USA squad.
I'll be honest. I feel like this was right before I started really watching wrestling when the Patriot was around. Personally, my actual memories of the Patriot actually extend to when he was doing his rounds on the independent circuit. I've actually seen him do a whole bunch of appearances on a bunch of local indies around us. I've actually, as strange as it may sound, in my independent wrestling, whenever I've been to an independent wrestling show, on most of the ones I've been to, he's been there. So take that for whatever it is.
Yeah, and he was only 59 years old. So another 2 more wrestlers gone way too early. Just
Yeah.
I don't really have many memories of either of these two. Like, I know of the storyline that the Patriot was involved in with the Hart Foundation. They did a whole Canada versus USA thing before any of us really started watching wrestling. And I didn't really know Super Genie. I knew of her just following Sabu when he wasn't on TV, but I never actually like saw her on TV or in person or anything like that. So for me, it's like there's no real emotional stake here. It's just another week where you go, rest in peace. Condolences to the friends and family of, condolences to Sabu, and to anyone who's actually still alive from that Canada versus USA storyline. That's it.
Yeah, and I think that's why this whole thing is really resonating with me in particular, because I feel like with a lot of the wrestling passings that have been, it's usually people who have been big stars from the mainstream promotions. With this, it's sort of on the periphery and of my fandom in a weird sort of way. Like the Patriot, I never saw him when he was active on the WWF shows, but I feel like I still have fond memories of him just frequenting a lot of the independents by us. As far as Super Genie, yeah, I've never seen her on a show, but I know she was very close with one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Sabu. So I'm like, it puts me in a mindset of just, I hope Sabu's doing okay and he's gonna make it through the other side of this, and he just doesn't do anything stupid.
And as much as I hate to say it's Sabu. So you have to actually take that thought into consideration.
Yeah, thankfully though, it seems like at least because he's got something of a presence on social media, I am seeing a lot of people reaching out to him, offering him words of encouragement and support. So thankfully, as Sabu like as he can be with technology, thankfully he doesn't seem to be totally isolating himself, for whatever that's worth.
I guess all I can
Don't
really
everyone
say,
speak all at once.
I'm kind of in the same boat with Brian. I don't have any memories or any sort of emotional connection wrestling fan wise with these two. So I just heard the news, and all I could say is, oh, well, that sucks. Condolences for the family and friends as well, to Sabu. But yeah, like Brian said, it's Sabu. Hopefully he doesn't do anything stupid, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does do something stupid. But hopefully he's doing all right. But nothing more else for me to say other than just giving my condolences. I wish I had some memories, like at least similar to what you did have, Fool, because my younger years I wasn't really that into the independence circuit as much as I am now, and it's still very, very little. But yeah, I don't really have really much to say about this other than just like, well, it's sad for the fans who do know this, have the memories with this person or with these two, and yeah, I got nothing more else to. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, on an upside, thankfully, Sabu, speaking of, does seem to have a good grasp on his limitations and all that. Because again, after this happened, I started scouring his Twitter feed, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Sabu has a Twitter feed.
Oh,
I know.
I know about Sabu's Twitter feed.
Yeah.
It is Quite the Twitter feed it is. Woo.
Yeah, thankfully he has been responding to fans quite a bit recently. And when someone reached out to him saying, "Oh, hey, how about going to AEW? AEW could use a little bit of extreme," he's like, "Nah, I'm getting a little too old for that." So it's like, okay, so if nothing else, it's not the end of the road just yet. But speaking of AEW and NXT, we have had some really excellent shows right from them. We've already talked about the phenomenal Daily's Place montage that AEW has aired. But for me, there's a lot that really jumped out from NXT this week that I personally really enjoyed, the least of which not being we have a new North American champ in NXT of Isaiah Swerve Scott. And there's a lot of implications that go along with this in my mind. But let me pitch it over to you guys. What did you think of this title change, and what do you think it means for the future?
It made me not surprised because the whole rumors going around with Karrion Kross and Bronson Reed having tryouts and main event matches as as I said, tryouts for the main roster. So it's actually not that surprising. And I'm actually very happy that Isaiah Swerve won because wow, I'm blinking out on that Hit Row.
Hit Row, yeah.
I love them. They are a great act. And yeah, the fact that they got some gold is just adding on to making them a very credible act in NXT, and I loved it.
Yeah, it's like Hit Row's the best thing they got going right now. And NXT, like they needed something new. Like the Undisputed Era, say what you want about it. Okay, they had a good 3-year run. It was old. It needed to be it they needed to do what they did with that. And what they needed was a good faction to get behind. Okay, and because as much as Undisputed Era was a heel faction, everyone got behind them. Okay, it's the same thing with Hit Row. They needed a new one. They got it with Hit Row.
They got so much charisma.
Exactly.
You see the potential. I won't say that it will happen because because nothing is very certain when it comes to getting a main roster call up. But for what they are in NXT, they are, as Brian said, one of the best, if not the best act going on. But I'm going to go with more of one of the best because there is just so much good in NXT right now. Like I'm actually really looking forward to Great American Bash next week. This was that's the best way to really describe this episode of NXT. It was just a very, very, very good go home show for the bigger show next week. I mean, I'm super pumped for the LA Knight Cameron Grimes rematch.
There it is. That is
because I honestly I'm if we had a prediction show with that one, I'm still gonna say Cameron Grimes loses and becomes the servant for LA Knight because I see so much potential in that, and they have nice vignettes just adding more to when Cameron Grimes wins that $1 million championship. It's going to be glorious.
It needs to be at him winning that championship needs to be at the takeover before SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, have him serve as the servant. Have LA Knight get over even more as a heel. Okay, he beats up Ted DiBiase, and then makes Cameron Grimes have to be his butler for.
Yeah, it's just good.
It's just keep it going.
Great heel heat that LA Knight's gonna get.
Exactly. Just keep building that up because when Cameron Grimes actually gets to win, holy shit. You want to talk about to the moon. Okay, that's it.
Right. for the rest of the show, the only other things that I can really say was it's good to hear that Mercedes Martinez is all right after that scary as hell kick that knocked her out. And when it comes to like compare Bronson Reed to Karrion Kross with their potential main roster call-ups, I see Bronson Reed going before Karrion Kross. Like part of me is like, oh, he's getting these tryouts and potential main roster call-up. Does it look like he may lose the NXT title to Johnny Gargano? I'm gonna say no, just because I'm not fully convinced of Johnny Gargano being the face of the brand. I actually think they're gonna save Karrion Kross for after SummerSlam, like the Raw or SmackDown after, and have him drop the title to O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Auto parts.
Yeah, I think they're saving it
much
for
as I like
O'Reilly's
Gargano,
title.
he should not be a heel should not take the title off of a heel. That's it. It's done. The Gargano versus Cross match shouldn't even be happening if we're really talking about it. but
Also the NXT Tag Team title. I want to see Timothy Thatcher and Ciampa destroy MSK, especially after Ciampa no-sold that slap. It was like, oh, I'm sorry. Did someone leave the windows open? It seems a little breezy in here. That's how that slap felt to like. That's how he reacted to that slap.
Oh, brother. Yeah, there's definitely a lot to look forward to. By the way, am I the only one who's a little, not that I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm sort of put off by all these like random big cards like in the middle of the week. Like we've got Great American Bash next week. We've got Fighter Fest on the horizon with AEW. Like,
well, the deal
cool,
is,
but I'm still a little like, okay, big shows need to be on Sunday or something.
Is that a segue for AEW, or is it just?
Well, no, because the whole
partly legitimate, really.
The whole thing is, okay, this is a normal thing for AEW. Okay, and there's always a show about halfway through the run between pay-per-views that is basically a super show, but they run it over 2 weeks on a Wednesday as a Dynamite. So it's like, yeah, it's Fighter Fest, but it's actually Dynamite. Okay, that's it. So it's like, I don't have an issue with that because it's basically a super powered, if we're going in WWE terms, it's one of those super powered Raws that they have. So it's like, no, that doesn't bother me because it's always been on a Wednesday for AEW, and that's not an issue. The problem was when NXT started doing it because AEW was doing it on a Wednesday. So I'm like, now that you're not going against each other on a Wednesday anymore and you're not trying to one-up each other, why are you still doing super shows?
Hey, beats the heck out of me, but hey.
But it's also like, it's NXT, it's Triple H, he knows what he's doing. Yeah, the ratings keep going down, but the wrestling is good. So if you believe
that's what makes it such a shame. Like
they screwed themselves.
They put on really good shows, and they're still not rising in the ratings. Yeah. And all I ever say is it's just because it's under that WWE banner, and people are just done with WWE in general.
And it's not even that. They screwed themselves over. Like they had that when they were exclusively on the network, people could watch whenever they wanted. Okay, and you didn't have the ratings number that they do now. So whatever they do now, it looks bad. It doesn't matter.
I just feel like they are capable. Maybe if they just start doing better productions on the, like, even though I love the look that NXT has, I mean, I've even heard people say when they act like when the pandemic is mainly over, they still want to see those big plexiglasses that separate the crowd, just because they really do use that to their advantage, and it makes them different than Raw and SmackDown. And I'm just like, maybe it is just also just maybe it would probably be different if they actually go to like small uh small vignettes to just go on a tour, start treating it like an actual third brand. But that's more hopes for me, because I feel they're fully capable of putting on their own shows and just making them their own brand. But as long as WWE keeps treating it like nothing more than developmental, that's mostly what people are going to see. And it's just, once again, for me personally, it's just under that WWE banner that hurts it more than anything.
Well,
And also the fact with, look, it doesn't really matter what they do. Once they get called up to the main roster, it means jack shit. So,
and everybody knows that. So it's like,
and you know what? Not for nothing. Apparently, getting released doesn't mean jack shit either, because we just got the sudden return of Zelina Vega on SmackDown this week.
yeah.
What? I mean, I heard the rumors like a day ago, but I honestly didn't give it any thought. Like, okay, dirt sheet's gonna dirt sheet,
and then
lo and
then what
behold,
does she do? Here's the thing. What does she do when she comes back? She loses to Liv Morgan
via roll up. But you can tell that there's gonna be a continuation of this feud.
I don't think it's a feud. I think it's a build up for a Liv Morgan push. Like, I'm not saying she's gonna win the thing, but I think that Liv Morgan actually has a shot if she gets
Has she been put in yet?
She hasn't been put in yet, but I mean, what's up?
That's fucking dumb. That's just my whole ordeal with the women's division in the main roster of WWE in general. They are the worst things that are on these shows now. I mean, we've talked about so many times how bad Raw is, but for the last couple of weeks, it's slowly starting to actually get better quality-wise, except when it comes to the women. The women is still the most unbearable thing to watch when it comes to these shows. Like, what was it? Charlotte, the 6-woman tag of Charlotte, Tamina, and Natty versus. Wow, why am I being terrible with names? Dana Brooke, Mandy Rose, and Rhea Ripley. And like the question that everyone keeps asking is, who is the good guy? Who's the bad guy in this feud? We don't know anymore, even though like the signs kind of lean towards Charlotte, Tamina, and Natty, because especially after the whole big Tamina push that she got post WrestleMania. But it's just hard to tell right now. It's just, who am I supposed to cheer in this? Because if they're just making Charlotte forcing Charlotte to be the baby face again, then you're just gonna have fans. When fans come back, they're gonna be pissed. They're like, yeah, we don't accept this bullshit.
Yeah, and with this whole storyline they're doing on SmackDown right now, I mean, like the logical thing that you would think is that Liv Morgan wins her way in to the money in the bank match and then goes on to win it. But you also have Alexa Bliss in the thing with her magical powers.
Which they actually did dial down, because it looks like they're just basically only magical thing they're doing is just mind control.
Exactly, but that's huge. If you could actually,
compared to her being teleported all over the place and changing her attire mid-match.
Yeah, I'm just like
down, but
but I'm like, the logical storytelling, the way that they're telling it is that Liv Morgan goes through all this shit trying to get into the Money in the Bank match. She finally does.
People who are in the Money in the Bank match.
Yeah, she finally gets into it. The logical conclusion would be that she's the winner of it because she went through all this shit. But it's like, it's the WWE. You can't go by logical booking at this point.
And it's like again, when it comes to the women's side, there is so much illogical booking. But when it comes to the men's side, they're actually starting to get a little more complex. Like Raw, for example, Matt Riddle wanting to basically fill in for Randy Orton to try and get him in the Money in the Bank match, or Drew fighting his way into at least get the Money in the Bank, even though he technically can't cash in on Bobby Lashley.
I honestly think, just based on the storyline potential of what's going on right now, that Riddle's my front runner. Just based on storyline potential of what you've already got a ready-made one. You're already building it right now.
It's actually a toss-up right now between Riddle and McIntyre for me, because with the whole, like, one big factor that's working in on my end is that there has been big talks of moving McIntyre to SmackDown, and I can see them using the Money in the Bank to try to basically have it be a unofficial draft jump.
I can see that.
So, like, I don't know. It's.
And then you could have Reigns lose.
Jeff, you've been quiet about this. What are your thoughts on what Brian and I have basically been going back and forth on?
Honestly, I feel like it's way too early to call. Like, again, because of how these matches have a tendency to go, and how how WWE has built them recently. Again, last year during the pandemic year, we got freaking Asuka winning, and then we got Otis winning via dropped briefcase. So you could come up with any number of rationales for who could win this thing.
I really hope they use it to actually, like,
hey, let's have the dude.
I want, like, with what Brian said, I do want Matt Riddle to win the briefcase a lot more, just so because he can actually use it as a jumping point to be a bigger star. I mean, McIntyre really doesn't need it because he's already one of the big baby faces of the company. So give it to someone who could be made into a star, because that was pretty much what it was being used most of the time. I mean, technically, Edge didn't need to win it, but he was still the first one to win, the first Money in the Bank holder. But,
well, he wasn't a star at the time. That turned him into what he is.
I don't entirely agree. I see what you're mean when you.
I see what you mean too. I'm with Jeff on this one. I see what you mean, but I'm not.
Yeah, and plus, let's be real here. John Cena.
That was his first title. That was his first title,
but it was just a means to. It just felt like a means to an end. Like, he would have gotten it there eventually. In my mind,
it was also like, he didn't become the ultimate opportunist. He didn't become the rated R superstar until that very moment. Like, that was his jumping off point. Yeah, he had good matches. Yeah, he had good feuds. But the moment he made it, at least in my eyes, was when he won the Money in the Bank ladder match, and the moment he cashed in and they called him the ultimate opportunist. Okay, that was when he became the superstar that he is today. Before that, he was good. He was a guy where you like, you thought, like, yeah, this is a main eventer. But that was when it was confirmed. Like, no, he's just not a main event. He's not just a main eventer. Like, he is like the number 2. in your company.
Yeah, but then again, at least now, like, yeah, conventional wisdom would say that it would be used like that. But then again, it's also not universal either. Again, we've gotten everyone from established stars like John Cena who have won the thing in the past. We had Brock Lesnar winning it, which ended up being hilarious. And then we got people who didn't really end up doing anything with it, like Otis, like the patron saint of our show, unfortunately, Damian Sandow, who just walked around with that sick ass, like, leather bound briefcase version of it, which was great.
To be
And
fair,
Mr. Sadness,
to
Corbin.
be fair, when it comes to Sandow, to be fair, if they weren't unifying the titles, I think he would have had a good go. But in my personal opinion, I'm going to pull an Adam Blampied on this one. I wish they had the world title match anyway, and that and Sandow would have cashed in on the person who won that unification match, just as a technicality. Now that there's one title, that the briefcase can be now just for that particular belt. But that's just the Blampied in me would love to have seen that and just establish Sandow as one of the top stars, because he definitely deserved it. But yeah.
My only point here is that there are ways we think this could go, and they would be logical if they decide to do it, like what you said about the utilizing the briefcase as a means to get Drew McIntyre from one show to another. But then again, they can just very easily, if they really want him that badly, they can easily just do another draft or get some talent trade, or see, there you go. Maybe we'll get it then.
Right?
I don't know.
Did they announce when the next draft is?
Yeah, it's September, I think.
Okay.
Oh, well, there you go. So who knows what we're going to get? Again, maybe they'll use it in what's to be known as the traditional way, and it could go to Matt Riddle. Or maybe they'll do something like they did last year. Do something completely out of left field that no one sees coming, but is still very interesting.
It's just SmackDown spaces that are left now, right? The Raw spaces are filled.
Yeah, I actually like the Raw spaces. It's
Riddle,
you got the spot,
Morrison, and McIntyre. So yeah, and then Kevin Owens and Big E. So there's 2 spaces left on the SmackDown side. Unless I missed a match.
I don't think you did. I was blanking myself.
They set up Cesaro versus Rollins to get into the Money in the Bank for next week.
See, this is why it's too early for me to tell. Like, maybe it could be Cesaro. Maybe this is how they do it.
I
really wish.
I wish go that route that Rollins is the one getting in. I hate to say it.
Hey, that remains to be seen. There's still a lot of time before we got Money in the Bank, and that will bring a whole slew of discussion to itself. But then again, that's just our view of things. Now is the time where we turn it over to you, our wrestling listening, consuming clientele ourselves. Words, that's what they mean. We want to hear from you. Who's going into the Money in the Bank match? What is going to be next for NXT? We want to hear from you. So drop us a line all across the internet. Facebook posts, YouTube comments, and our personal favorite, the Twitter machines, starting with @ScholarsOW for all the latest episode uploads every single week, except for when we take a week off. And of course, you can always drop us a line and join in the conversation on our personal Twitter accounts. Fool, where can they reach you?
You can reach me enjoying WWE Dynamite at The Avataric.
Brian, where can they reach you?
You can reach me enjoying AEW Smackdown at Atomic Beanful.
I'm not mad at JR. It happens.
And you can you can catch me watching the actual real show, MLW Raw, at I'm Robbie Rage. Join in the conversation. Watch all the shows. You know we will, because you know who we are. We are the Scholars of Wrestling, and you have just been fooled. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Let's watch some TNA
Bagao.
TNA Sunday Night Heat. I got
Good
no
God Almighty.